Okay, welcome back to the next assignment on this building. It's entitled Openings and Framing. So the majority of the work that we're going to be doing on this model for this assignment is creating openings into our exterior masonry walls, as well as doing some structural steel framing on the second floor, or creating some structural steel framing. In addition to that, we're also going to be creating just sort of developing the model further. We're going to be adding some more windows in the second floor, as well as just a few other details to this building. The first thing that I'm going to tackle is creating our openings for our large expanses of curtain wall window. And those expanses start on this wall and wrap all the way around the building until about here. And then this wall here actually becomes mostly curtain wall as well. So I'm going to start here, which is the north elevation. So I'm going to open up my north elevation view. And if I look at the final deliverable, I can see that these walls are split up to receive two sections of curtain wall. So essentially what I want to do is split this one vertical wall up into 1, 2, and 3 sections with these dimensions here. So just like everything else in Revit, what I always do is I either draw or modify the thing I want and then worry about exact locations later. So I'm going to use that split tool, which we used on the other side of the building before, to split some walls up. Only this time, instead of doing vertical splits, we're going to do horizontal splits. So we go to the Modify ribbon, and we find that split button, split element. It's also SL if you want to use the shortcut. Now again, if I hover over the top or bottom of the wall, I get this little vertical line here that indicates that I'm cutting a vertical split. Whereas if I go to the vertical walls, it gives me a horizontal split. So I am going to click there, and then click 2 more times down on the first level. And now I essentially have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walls. And what I can do is I can select that middle wall and delete it to create that opening. Now what I have to do is figure out where the top and bottom of these all are. So I'm going to select one of my levels, drag it out a little bit to give myself a little bit of room to get some dimensions in here, and I'm going to run a dimension string from level 1 to the top of that wall, to the bottom of this wall, to the top of that wall, so on and so forth, until I get to the top of that entire wall section. Now, I cannot drive the height of this using my dimensions like I would in plan. You can't do that in elevation. So what I have to do here is use the top and bottom constraints of this. So I know this first section wall is 1'4" above level 1. So what I'm going to do is come over here to my constraints. The base offset stays the same. The top constraint can be level 1, and the top offset is 1'4". And it places that there. The bottom of this wall is 10 feet above the top of this wall, if we look at our final, 12 feet. So what we're going to do with this wall, because it's below level 2, and it's the bottom of this wall is below level 2, I'm going to set the constraint for this at level 1 with an offset of 12 plus 1'4", which is 13'4". So the bottom of this level is going to be level 1, as it's shown here, and it's going to be 13 feet 4. And now that dimension reads as 12 feet. Now this dimension is a little bit of an oddball. This is an overall dimension, and this is actually based upon brick coursing. One of the great things about Revit is that because we have this brick pattern on here, we can actually use the align tool to get to the brick coursing dimension. And I'll show you how that works here. So my dimension here wants to be 6'5" and 3/8. So I can use the handles to get this close. I can go to 6'2", 6'8". So that's 6'6" right there. So I could probably tell that the top of this brick is 6'5" and 3/8. So I can actually use the align tool, so AL, and I can align to individual coursing lines. So I'm going to click that coursing line and then click the top of my wall. And now I have 6'5" and 3/8. And we're actually going to use these coursing lines quite a bit for our alignments in this project. So if we go back here, again, we can see that the height of this window is 10 feet. So what we can do, now it's going to be 10 feet plus whatever this offset here is, and we don't know what that is. So again, we can get this close. So that's 10'1" 3/16. And that's 9'11". So I know that I need to line up with that course line there. So I'm going to use the align tool, click there and click there. And I have a nice 10 foot, and my remaining dimension is 6. So that now I've set the heights of the openings for this wall. Because that's the same height all throughout the building, I can now use these 3 walls that I've set up to drive the rest of them. Again, I always like to check out a 3D view to make sure that what I did is what I expected, and that looks correct. So we have to do that same thing to this wall, and this wall. So if this is the north elevation, let's put this way, we need to go to the west elevation. You can look at your view cube. Actually, we want to look at the east elevation, I'm sorry, to look at this wall here, because that's what we're going to take care of next. So if we go to the east elevation, we're going to go to our split command again. And this time, again, I'm not really going to worry. I'm not going to try to get it lined up exactly with this spot, because it's going to be really hard to get that to happen. And you'll actually notice with your little, it gives you a little X-Acto knife for the split command. You actually don't want to hover over the edge of this wall here. You want to hover over sort of where the midpoint of the perpendicular wall is. And I'm just going to split there and split there. And you'll see that bump out a little bit as an indication that you have indeed split that wall. Same thing down there. Hit escape twice. And now I can select that wall and that wall. And again, that align tool, it's a lifesaver. We can use that and align to there, align to that wall, the top of this wall, so on and so forth. And very quickly, and sometimes you got to zoom in to get the right line, we've split this wall up the way we need to. We look again at a 3D view, and that curtain wall wraps around, or what will eventually become curtain wall wraps around. I'm going to go around to this side of the building, doing the same exact thing, and I'll come back when that's finished. So we've cut out all of our openings around to this corner. One thing I want you to pay attention to, this won't affect the way that the drawing looks, but it affects the way that the model acts. And that is, I've selected this wall, and you know, I split this up and I aligned it to the top of this wall. Well, the problem is the top constraint is unconnected at this moment. So we've removed a parametric relationship. And again, I always like these things to be connected to something. So what I'm going to do is change my top constraint to level 2. But because my offset's 0, it's going to come back down here. Now I need to go to an elevation where I can see this, and I can align that back up to where it needs to go. But now if I move the level, it's always going to maintain that offset from that level. So that's the kind of stuff you need to be aware of, because if you need to make changes or corrections to your drawing, you want to have as many parametric relationships as you can maintain. So if I switch back to my 3D view, you can see that we have a little bit of cleanup to do. This fin wall actually goes to the back of this wall. And these are the sorts of things that come up as you design and refine a model. You know, we had that fin wall stop this wall when it was a solid wall, but now we realize it has to go in and continue to separate these two walls. So I'm going to go to my first floor plan. I'm going to select that fin wall. Now you can see that the endpoint of that fin wall is actually in the middle of this wall, and it's automatically trimming to this edge. So what we have to do is we're going to drag this away from that wall first. Now it's giving me this warning because I have it joined to that piece of wall on the roof. So again, you always have to be aware of what's going on in another place. So I'm going to say, okay, unjoin. So just to show you that, that's what it was talking about. It was saying, hey, these two things were joined together, you're unjoining them. And I just said, okay, that's fine. Now what I'm going to do is, the reason this was going to the center was because this wall was joining this wall. I don't want this wall to join this wall because it's still going to go to the center. So I can right click this handle and say disallow join. We've used that command before. And now we're going to drag that over to the back of the wall. You're going to get a little warning saying highlighted walls overlap. That's fine. We're going to ignore that for now. We go to our 3D view, and now you can see that that wall goes to the back side of this exterior wall. And the only thing we have to do now is fix this wall up here, and we can do that by going to the roof plan. And we've already disallowed this join here, so now we're going to move those together. And I'm actually going to allow the join back on that one, but because this one is still disallowed, it's not actually going to join it. Go back to 3D, and then join them manually using the join command. Now, here's what I was talking about too, where we're going to be using that align tool a lot. You can see that there's a slight misalignment, not so much in the wall height, but the hatch. So if I go to a south elevation, I can see that slight misalignment in the hatch. Now, obviously these walls are set up to be at brick height, so we know that this wall is correct, this one is not, so we can use the align tool to actually move the hatch. And it seems like it's still off a little bit. I'll have to figure out what's going on there. There we go. Nope, that's not it either. That's what I'm looking for. Took me a few tries to get it, but we got there. So you're going to do the exact same thing for this fin wall that we did for that wall, where we're gonna move that back into there. And in the next video, we're going to continue around this corner, making an opening for our curtain wall.